The lights went out just as Jonah Reed was trying to convince his 5-year-old daughter that peanut butter on stale toast counted as dinner. "Daddy," Lily whispered from the couch, her little voice trembling as the apartment plunged into darkness. "Did the world break?" Jonah stood up fast, bumping into the coffee table. No, baby, just the power. Probably the whole block. I'll grab the flashlight." He fumbled through a drawer in the kitchen, his fingers brushing against batteries and loose change until he found the flashlight. It lit up their tiny living room with a dull orange glow. He turned back to Lily, who was curled up under a blanket, eyes wide. "See, we've got light, nothing to worry about." She nodded but clutched her stuffed giraffe tighter. Jonah glanced toward the hallway window. Rain pelted the glass. Thunder cracked overhead. It had been one of those days his truck broke down at the construction site, daycare called about Lily's cough, and now the storm had killed the power. Typical. He was about to sit beside Lily when someone pounded on the front door. 3 fast knocks. Jonah didn't get visitors. Not up here, on the 3rd floor of a building most people didn't even look at twice. He opened the door cautiously, then blinked. A woman stood there, drenched from the rain, her arms wrapped around herself. Her blonde hair clung to her face and her expensive-looking coat was soaked through. "Hi," she said, her voice shaking. "My car broke down. I was trying to get a signal outside, but then the lights went out," and she looked over her shoulder. "I saw your light." Jonah hesitated. She didn't look like she belonged in this building, or this neighborhood. "I just need to wait out the storm," she added quickly. I'm not trying anything." Lily peeked around the corner. "Daddy, who is it?" Jonah gave the stranger a quick once-over. She looked terrified. Her shoes were muddy and her coat, definitely designer, was dripping on the hallway floor. He opened the door wider. "You can come in." She stepped inside, looking around the small apartment like it was foreign land. "I'm Jonah," he said, shutting the door behind her. "That's my daughter, Lily." The woman bent down a little, trying to smile. "Hi, Lily, I'm Calla." Lily tilted her head. "You look like a movie star." Calla let out a surprised laugh. "I promise I'm not." Calla Prescott wasn't used to rainstorms or broken-down cars or walking through neighborhoods without security. She wasn't used to being caught without her phone, her driver, or her assistant. And she definitely wasn't used to being in a small, dimly lit apartment with a stranger who offered her dry towels and stale toast like it was the most normal thing in the world. But there was something about Jonah's voice, deep, calm, steady, that made her feel safe for the first time in hours. He handed her a towel. "You okay?" She nodded, her hands still shaking. "Yeah, sorry, I don't do well with storms." "I figured." He glanced toward the window. "You looked like you were about to bolt into the wind." Calla gave a small laugh. "I probably would have." Jonah moved back to the couch and sat beside Lily. "Want to sit?" Calla hesitated, then joined them. Lily leaned toward her. "Do you have any kids?" Calla smiled softly. "No, but I have a niece." "She's your age." Jonah watched the way she interacted with Lily, gentle, curious, like she wasn't just being polite. "You sure you don't need to call someone?" he asked. Calla shook her head. "Phone's dead. And I doubt anything's getting through with the storm." She didn't add that she could have called her private security team with one button if her phone had power, or that her last name could get a tow truck there in minutes. But something about Jonah made her want to keep that part of herself hidden. So she sat with them, listening as Lily asked about giraffes and thunderstorms and whether peanut butter could be dinner again tomorrow. And Jonah. He just kept talking, his voice low and soft, walking them all through the storm like it was no big deal. He wasn't rich. He wasn't polished. His jeans had paint on them and his socks didn't match. But when the thunder cracked again and Calla flinched, Jonah reached out instinctively, his hand brushing hers. "You're safe here," he said, and for reasons she didn't understand yet, she believed him. They stayed like that for a while, just the 3 of them. When Lily finally fell asleep on the couch, Jonah pulled a blanket over her and turned to Calla. "You can take the bed, I'll stay out here." Calla blinked. "No, I couldn't, you're not sleeping on the floor." He stood, already grabbing a pillow. "Storm should be over by morning. You'll be out of here before you know it." She didn't move. Did she want to leave? She should have. She had a meeting at noon tomorrow with hedge fund investors. She had an empire to run. But sitting in that tiny apartment surrounded by warmth and quiet, something in her chest ached. I'll take the bed, she said softly. Jonah nodded. Good. As she walked toward the hallway, she turned back once. Thank you. He gave her a tired smile. Anytime. What Jonah couldn't know, was that the woman curled up in his bed that night was Calla Prescott, heiress to a billion-dollar global tech company. And what Calla didn't know was that the man who made her feel safer than anyone ever had was about to change everything she thought she wanted. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a pale gray sky and puddles reflecting the fire escape outside Jonah's window. The power still hadn't returned, but sunlight streamed in through the slats in the blinds, casting soft stripes across the living room floor. Jonah stood at the stove, heating water on the gas burner. The smell of instant coffee filled the kitchen. He glanced over his shoulder. Lily was still asleep, her blanket tangled around her legs, one arm thrown over her stuffed giraffe. He didn't want to wake her yet. She'd had a rough night. Behind him, quiet footsteps padded down the hallway. He turned just as Calla appeared, her hair brushed back into a low ponytail, her bare feet silent against the worn linoleum. She wore one of his flannel shirts, the sleeves rolled up, and her damp coat was folded over the back of a chair. You're up early, Jonah said, handing her a chipped mug. It's not much, but it's hot. Calla accepted it with both hands. This might be the best thing anyone's ever given me. He raised an eyebrow. You've had a rougher life than I thought. She gave a soft laugh, then took a sip. I didn't sleep much. Bad dreams. No, just thinking. She looked out the small window above the sink. You live here alone with Lily? Yeah. No family nearby, not anymore. Calla didn't ask anything else. Instead, she moved toward the tiny dining table and sat down, her gaze drifting over the drawings taped to the fridge, the cracked tile near the sink, the cereal box being used to prop up a wobbly chair leg. I'm sorry I just showed up like that, she said quietly. I should have figured something else out. Jonah leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You didn't do anything wrong. I've had worse drop-ins. She glanced at him. Is this where you grew up? No, we moved around a lot when I was a kid. This is just where we landed. You and Lily? Yeah. Her mom passed when she was 2. It's just been us since. Calla blinked, her fingers tightening around the mug. I'm sorry, Jonah nodded once. It's okay, she doesn't remember much, probably a blessing. Calla studied him for a long moment. You seem steady, like nothing shakes you, he shrugged. Things shake me, I just don't let them knock me over. She looked down at her coffee. I admire that. Jonah pushed off the counter. You need to get somewhere this morning, Calla hesitated. I have a meeting downtown. If I can find a cab. He reached into a drawer and pulled out an old flip phone, the kind that belonged in another decade. You can borrow this. It doesn't do much, but it makes calls. She took it, her fingers brushing his. Thanks. There was a pause, not awkward, just full. Then Lily stirred on the couch, yawning without opening her eyes. Jonah walked over and knelt beside her. Morning, ladybug. She blinked at him. Is it still raining? Nope. Sky's clear. Lily sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Then she looked at Calla and smiled. You're still here, Calla smiled back. I am, but I have to go soon. Lily's face fell a little. Can you come back? Calla's eyes flicked to Jonah, then back to Lily. Would you like that? Lily nodded. You didn't get to see my sparkly shoes. Jonah chuckled. She's very proud of those shoes. Then I guess I'll have to come back, Calla said. Lily leaned close and whispered, next time you can stay for pancakes. Sounds perfect. Calla stood and walked back to the hallway where her coat waited. She slid it on slowly, the weight of her other life pressing back onto her shoulders. The one with boardrooms and contracts and people who only called her when they needed something. Jonah followed, hands in his pockets. You sure you'll be okay out there? She turned to face him. I've survived worse, he smiled faintly. If your car's still stuck, I can take a look at it. I'm good with engines, she hesitated. I might take you up on that. Calla opened the door, then paused. Jonah? Yeah, she looked at him like she was trying to memorize every detail of his face. You didn't ask me anything, not even my last name. You didn't offer it. I still won't, he nodded slowly. All right. Calla tilted her head, considering him. You're not what I expected. I get that a lot. I'll be back, she said, her voice softer than before. I'll keep the coffee warm. She left then, stepping into the morning light, her heels splashing into the puddles as she disappeared down the stairs. Jonah closed the door and leaned his back against it. Something about her didn't add up. The coat, the way she looked at the chipped mug like it was made of gold, the way she answered questions with half-truths. But then Lily called from the couch, asking for pancakes, and Jonah pushed it all aside. Whoever Calla was, whatever she was running from or toward, she'd walked into their lives like a gust of wind, unexpected, strange, and impossible to ignore. And part of him already knew she wasn't done with them. The next time Jonah saw her, she was standing in the hardware aisle of the corner store, holding a plunger like it was a foreign object. He froze near the electrical supplies, caught mid-reach for a box of screws. She hadn't seen him yet. Her hair was down this time, brushed over one shoulder, and she wore sunglasses despite it being overcast outside. Her coat was different, sleek, tailored, and nothing like what people wore in this neighborhood. Jonah took a slow breath and walked toward her. Planning to do some plumbing, Calla turned, startled. When she pulled off the sunglasses, something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe relief. This thing was the only one left, she said, lifting it slightly. I think it's missing a piece. He glanced at the handle. That's a sink plunger. You're probably dealing with a toilet. Her shoulders dropped. Figures. Where are you staying? He asked. That fancy coat doesn't exactly blend in around here. I rented a place a few blocks from your building, she said. Short term, you came back, he said, keeping his voice even. I said I would. He nodded toward her hand. You're not going to fix anything with that. I was hoping someone in the store would offer to help, but no one even looked at me. People here don't usually assume strangers need help, he said. Especially if they look like they can afford to pay someone to do it. That's the problem, she said. People always assume I can afford everything. He didn't ask what that meant. Instead, he reached for a different plunger on the shelf. This one'll actually do the job. Calla took it with a small nod. Thanks. You got anyone else staying with you? No, you shouldn't be alone in that place if something breaks. Half the systems in those old buildings haven't been updated since the 80s. She gave a dry laugh. I've already figured that out. He studied her for a moment. Want me to take a look at the toilet, at everything? She hesitated. That's not necessary. Doesn't mean I won't offer. Calla shifted the plunger to her other hand. You always do this. Fix things for people you barely know. No, he said, but you're not a stranger anymore. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and something settled behind her eyes. All right, she said. Let's go. The place she'd rented was on the second floor of a narrow building that looked decent from the outside, but revealed peeling paint and warped floorboards as soon as they stepped in. Jonah noticed the faulty light switch near the entrance immediately and the faint smell of mildew coming from the bathroom. I wasn't expecting luxury, she said, noticing his expression, but I didn't think I'd need to boil water just to get hot. He set his toolbox on the counter. Water heater's probably ancient. I'll check it. She leaned against the doorframe. You're not doing this just to be nice, are you? He looked up. Is that a problem? No, I'm just not used to it. Jonah knelt by the pipes, twisting a valve. That's a sad thing to admit. She didn't answer right away. Then, after a long pause, she said quietly, I'm not who I was the other night. I figured. I own a company, she said. A big one. He didn't look up. You don't have to explain. I want to. I should have told you. I like not being that person for once. He tightened a pipe. What kind of company? Tech, software. I inherited it from my father. That why you're hiding out in this neighborhood? I'm not hiding, she said. I'm breathing. He stood slowly, wiping his hands. You don't owe me anything, Calla. Maybe not, she said. But I haven't stopped thinking about your daughter since that night, or you. He met her eyes. You don't know me. I want to. Jonah took a step closer. This isn't your world. Maybe not, she said. But it feels a lot more real than mine. He didn't answer. The space between them thickened, not with awkwardness, but with something else unspoken, heavy, alive. Then the toilet flushed in the background, the noise startling them both. Jonah gave her a look. Fixed, he said flatly. Calla burst out laughing, the sound light and unfiltered. Well, that's romantic. Depends on the plumbing. She leaned against the counter. I'm going to make you dinner. He raised an eyebrow. You cook? I've never tried. That doesn't inspire confidence. She crossed her arms. I'll figure it out, and if I burn it, we'll just call it a learning experience. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. "All right," he said, "but I'm bringing dessert." As he packed up his tools, he noticed something on the counter, a sleek silver phone charging. "You got your phone back up, MMHMM. Guess that means you can call anyone you want now." "I could," she said, "but I don't want to." He paused, watching her. "I don't need a mansion or a driver or another meeting," she added. "I just need something real." Jonah slung the toolbox over his shoulder. "Then you're in the wrong city." "Maybe," she said, "or maybe I just finally found the right corner of it." He didn't say anything, just walked to the door and opened it. "I'll see you tonight," she said behind him. He glanced back. "Just don't poison me. No promises." He left, the door clicking shut behind him, but her voice and the smell of cheap soap and rainwater clung to him all the way down the stairs. And for the first time in a long time, he caught himself smiling for no reason at all. Calla opened the door before Jonah could knock. The smell hit him instantly, something warm and surprisingly edible drifting from the kitchen. "I made pasta," she said, stepping aside. "Or at least I think I did." He walked in cautiously, eyeing the pot on the stove. "It's not on fire." "That's a good start." "I used every clean dish I had," she admitted, "and maybe some I wasn't sure were clean." "I brought pie," he said, holding up the box. "From that bakery on 12th, the one with the line out the door." She blinked. "You waited in that line." "They moved me to the front when Lily told the cashier I was the best dad in the world." Calla's mouth curved. "Smart girl. She gets it from me." He followed her into the kitchen, where two mismatched plates sat on the counter beside a bottle of wine already half open. She poured them each a glass without asking. "This place looks better already," Jonah said, glancing around. "You did all this." "I hired someone to clean the walls this morning, and I replaced the curtains. They smelled like soup." He accepted the glass she handed him. "You're adapting. I'm not sure if that's a good thing." She took a sip, then set the glass down. "I canceled my meetings today." "All of them?" He tilted his head. "That's not just adapting, that's a full course correction. I needed space. Time to figure out what I actually want. And the truth is, I'm tired of being a headline, tired of every decision being watched." Jonah picked up a fork. "So you're hiding out with pasta and bad curtains." "I'm not hiding," she said. "I'm choosing." He watched her for a moment, then took a bite. "This is edible." High praise. "Don't let it go to your head." They ate in silence for a while, but it wasn't uncomfortable. She watched him roll up his sleeves and talk between bites about the neighbor who played the trumpet at odd hours and how Lily had started asking questions about weather patterns. "She wants to know how the sky makes thunder," he said. "I told her it's the clouds arguing about bedtime." Calla laughed, then covered her mouth. "That's actually brilliant." She bought it. For now, he reached for the pie box, slicing into it with a plastic knife. "She likes you, by the way." "I like her too," Calla said. "I've never met a kid who listens so closely. Most adults don't." She learned early that people don't always stick around, so when someone does, she pays attention. Calla's face shifted. "I'm not here to pass through. I wasn't fishing, I know. But I want to say it anyway." He studied her, then nodded once. "Okay." After dinner, she washed the dishes while Jonah dried. He glanced around the apartment again, noting the subtle changes. A new lamp in the corner, fresh sheets folded on the couch, a package with a shipping label addressed to a fake name. She was trying to build something here even if she didn't fully understand what yet. When the dishes were done, she leaned against the counter and looked at him. "Come with me tomorrow," she said. "Where?" "There's a benefit gala. My assistant sent me an invite weeks ago. I wasn't going to go, but now I think I should." He raised an eyebrow. "You want me to wear a tux? I want you to see what my world looks like," she said. "So you'll understand what I'm walking away from or walking into." He hesitated. "And Lily. I arranged for my niece's nanny to stay with her, just for the evening." "You'd meet her first, of course." Jonah leaned against the opposite counter. "You think I'd fit in at a place like that?" "No," she said. "Which is exactly why I want you there." The next night, Jonah stood in front of a mirror wearing a rented tux that felt like it cost more than his truck. The collar itched and the shoes pinched, but Lily had clapped when she saw him in it, so he kept his complaints to himself. Calla arrived in a black dress with clean lines and no glitter, her hair swept up, her heels sharp. She looked like someone who could buy a country before breakfast, but her eyes softened when she saw him. "You clean up well," she said. "You've got low standards." She laughed, then reached for his hand. "Ready?" "No," he said. "But I'll go anyway." The gala was held in a glass-walled tower downtown. Cars lined the curb sleek, silent machines with drivers who didn't blink. Inside, the room sparkled with chandeliers and money. People with polished smiles shook hands and dropped names like breadcrumbs. Jonah stuck close to Calla. She introduced him to people who paused just a second too long when she said his name, waiting for the title or company that never came. "He's a contractor," she would say, eyes daring anyone to question it. After a while, Jonah stopped watching the people and started watching her. She moved through the crowd with practiced grace, but every time she looked at him, something unguarded flickered in her expression. Later, when the speeches were done and the music started, she pulled him toward the balcony. The city stretched below them, glittering and restless. "I used to think this was the only life worth having," she said. "High up above everything. And now, I think I was just afraid of falling." He stepped closer. "I don't think you're afraid anymore." She turned to him. "I'm not." He reached for her hand. "So what happens after this? That depends," she said. "Are you willing to let me stay?" Jonah didn't answer right away. He looked out at the skyline, then back at her. "Only if you're willing to come down from the tower." She smiled, and this time it wasn't polished, it was real. "I already did," she said. The next morning, Lily ran barefoot across the apartment to show Calla a drawing of the three of them under a sun with long arms. Calla knelt beside her. "Is that me?" Lily nodded. "You live with us now." Calla glanced at Jonah, who stood in the kitchen pouring coffee, pretending not to listen. "Well," she said, "I suppose I do." Jonah looked over and raised his cup in silent agreement. And just like that, a new life began, not in a tower or with fanfare, but with dry toast, a warm couch, and arms that finally felt like home. The first time Calla opened the envelope, she didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or burn it. It was thick, ivory, and sealed with a gold-embossed crest she knew all too well, her family's. A Prescott family invitation meant one thing: pressure disguised as privilege. She'd shoved it in a drawer, unopened. But now, 3 weeks after the gala, she held it again at the tiny kitchen table in Jonah's apartment while Lily colored beside her, humming something tuneless. The envelope was still sealed. Jonah stepped in from the hallway, setting a folded newspaper on the counter. "You've been staring at that thing like it's a bear trap." "It might as well be," Calla muttered. "Want to talk about it?" She hesitated, then slid it across the table. "It's my father's memorial fundraiser. The annual one. Black tie, old money, all the people who think grief is a performance." Jonah didn't touch the envelope. "You going?" "I don't know. I haven't been to one since he died. I used to smile through them when I was younger, make speeches I didn't write. But I barely recognize the woman I used to be. You think it'll pull you back in, or remind me of everything I left behind?" Calla looked down at Lily, who was now drawing a sun with legs. "I'm not afraid of my past," she said, quieter now. "But I don't want it to decide my future." Jonah pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "Then go on your own terms. Don't let them define the story." She traced the edge of the envelope. "Would you come with me?" Jonah didn't hesitate. "Yes, it'll be ugly. People will talk. They already do. You'd be the only one there without a last name that opens doors." He leaned forward. "Calla, I don't care about their doors. I care about you." She didn't answer right away. Then she reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. Later that week, Calla stood in the full-length mirror of a borrowed hotel suite, adjusting the necklace around her collarbone. It wasn't flashy, just a small diamond pendant her mother had given her at 16. The dress was black, fitted, and understated, chosen not for show but for armor. Jonah emerged from the bedroom, adjusting the cufflinks Calla had given him that morning. They were engraved with a tiny compass. "So I don't lose my way," he joked. Now he looked at her for a long moment. "You look like someone nobody should mess with. That's the idea." The fundraiser was held at the Prescott Foundation's private event hall, a sprawling marble and glass structure built with legacy money and too much ambition. The valet took Jonah's truck without comment, though his raised eyebrows said plenty. Inside, the room was a sea of tailored suits and polished etiquette. Calla's entrance turned heads as expected. She ignored them, her hand steady in Jonah's. A woman with sharp cheekbones and a sharper voice intercepted them near the Champagne Tower. "Calla, you've returned." She flicked her gaze to Jonah. "And brought company." Calla didn't flinch. "This is Jonah Reed. He builds homes and keeps mine standing." The woman blinked, thrown by the simplicity of it. "Lovely." As they moved past her, Jonah leaned close. "You just rattled her entire understanding of the world." "Good," Calla replied. She needed the wake-up call. The night passed in waves. Conversations drifted by, some old acquaintances trying to reclaim her, others fishing for gossip. Jonah stayed close but never hovered, watching her navigate the space with a quiet strength he hadn't seen in her before. During the tribute speech, Calla stood at the podium. Every eye in the room was on her. "My father built an empire," she began, "but what I remember most is that he never asked me what I wanted to build. Tonight, I want to honor him not by repeating what he did, but by choosing something different." She paused, her voice steady. "I'm starting a new initiative, one that funds startup contractors, single parents, and small businesses in underserved neighborhoods. Because the next generation of builders shouldn't need a family name to be seen." Murmurs spread through the crowd. She looked out over them, then found Jonah's gaze near the back. His jaw was tight, his eyes unreadable. Afterward, as the room thinned and the press cornered the real estate heirs and tech moguls, Calla pulled Jonah onto the rooftop terrace. The city shimmered below them, distant and untouchable. "Was that too much?" she asked. "No," he said. "It was exactly right." She turned to face him. "They'll come after me, try to spin it. My board's going to throw a fit." "Let them. I'm not scared," she said, "but I don't want this to cost me you." Jonah stepped closer, his hand at her waist. "Calla, I fell in love with you before I knew your last name. And every day since, I've watched you fight to become someone you can stand behind. Nothing about this scares me." Her breath caught. "You love me." "I do." She stared at him, chest rising. "I love you too." He kissed her, then slow, certain, and full of everything they hadn't said. The city disappeared. The rooftop faded. There was only this moment, raw and real. Months later, the Prescott Foundation launched a new wing under Calla's direction, focused entirely on community rebuilding. Jonah was on the advisory board, though he still spent most of his days in worn jeans and work boots, hammering beams into homes that would outlast them both. They moved into a brownstone together when they restored by hand, brick by brick. Lily had her own room, painted in soft pinks and whites, filled with books and tiny giraffe figurines. On the weekends, Calla taught her how to bake cookies that always came out burnt, but Lily never noticed. On a quiet spring morning, Jonah knelt in the garden they'd planted behind the house, holding a ring fashioned from reclaimed wood and a single diamond. Calla stepped outside barefoot, coffee in hand. "You're going to ruin your knees," she said. "Worth it," he replied. "Marry me?" She blinked once. "Don't think," he said. "Just answer." She set the coffee down and knelt beside him, pressing her forehead to his. Yes, they married in the backyard under a canopy of string lights, Lily tossing wildflowers instead of petals. There were no headlines, no reporters. Just laughter, clinking glasses, and the sound of a new life beginning, not in a tower. Not on a stage, but in a home filled with mismatched mugs, tiny shoes by the door, and a love that had no need to perform, only to endure.